you think about me?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Craig Studnicky, CEO of ISG and President of RelatedISG International Realty. Today is September 30th. Welcome to the end of September. Welcome to the end of Q3, the third quarter of what's been a remarkable year known as 2020. Those of you that saw my presentation on the Manor Report in early July know that we didn't print this until the end of June. So what we presented in early July were through the Q2 results, or June 30th. Today, I'm giving you the Q3 update, and it is simply remarkable what's happened in the last 3 months. Let's start. When we presented this in July, we talked about the unprecedented conditions of Q1 and Q2. And back then, many economists around the world were comparing the recession that we were in Q2, and we were, to the Great Depression of 1929, to the banking failure of 2008. The nice people from Swire Properties, the developers of Brickell City Center, they invited Andres Oppenheimer to speak at a webinar in early May, because there is no one that knows more about the economic, political, and social changes in Latin America like Andres. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer. He's an Emmy Award winner. He's got a television program with CNN known as Oppenheimer Presenta. He is the foremost authority on the changing conditions in Latin America. And because of that, he has a worldview as well. And because of that, I wanted him to offer his opinion on how all of this would affect South Florida real estate sales in 2020. So here's what he did. He offered this contrast, this comparison. I wasn't even aware that in the Great Depression of 1929 took 10 years to recover from. 10 years, probably because they didn't have the technology that we have available today where information can flow quickly and we can get back on our feet a little faster. But nevertheless, it took 10 years. 2008, 2009, that was 2 years. That was 21st century. We had technology, but that was such a colossal bank failure. It took 2 solid years, all of 2008, all of 2009 for us to recover. And that's all it took, because by 2010, we were rolling again here in South Florida. But now we're here was 2020. And what he harped on, Andres did, in early May, was that 1929 and 2008 were banking failures, true financial failures. This is a virus. And we've been put into this medically induced coma where it forced us into this recession in order to get our arms wrapped around the effects of this virus. It's not going to take 2 years, certainly not going to take 10. He said 6 months of a recovery. He called it V-shape. Now, I will tell you that back in May, I was very optimistic when I heard all of this. But at the same time, I also felt a healthy dose of skepticism. How does he know it's only 6 months? Because if it's only 6 months, I have all the reasons in the world, as do all of you, to feel nothing but optimism about Q3 and Q4. But how does he know? Well, I don't know how he knew, but he knew. Let me show you. Because now we're going to get into all the reasons why we needed to feel the optimism. Let's go to the next one. And it led with single-family homes. Look at what's happened. We're going to show you what happened with single-family homes. But please remember this rule of thumb in this brief 10-minute presentation. Every time you've got 10% or more of a building of a single-family home community on MLS, that's called a seller's market. Buyer's market, excuse me. The buyers have the edge because there's a lot of supply. When you have 10% or less, that's the seller's market. That's when the sellers have the advantage. Well, let me show you why single-family homes are indeed a seller's market. This is Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. That's a lot of information, but let me boil it down for you. This is roughly 1.7 million single-family home units in all of South Florida. There's not less than 10% on the market. It's less than 1%. Look at this. There's less than, 0.67% in Miami-Dade, 0.77 in Broward, 0.73 in Palm Beach. Let me show you the next slide, and it's a little bit easier for you to understand exactly what we're trying to present here. A year and a half ago, in January of 19, there were roughly 16,000 single-family homes on the market. And please remember, 2019 was a good year. It was a very strong year for real estate sales. Mortgage rates were low, not as low as they are today, but they were low. Unemployment was less than 5%. Stock market was doing great. Happy days are here again. New Yorkers, New Jersey people are moving here because of the Tax Reform Act of 2017. They weren't moving in the numbers we've seen this year, I understand, but they were still moving here. Look what happened as a result of all of that. 9 months later, 16,000 became 15,000. By January of 2020, that dropped to 13,000. Started to make us think that we're probably selling faster than new listings can replace. Well, look what happened in 2020. It dropped even more. One of the things I've noticed about general real estate is we realtors go where the buyers take us. And this year, the buyers have taken us to single-family homes. Let's go to the next slide. Look what's happened this year. Every single month, once again, we're combining the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade. 3,554 new listings every single month, but outpaced by sales by a factor of 317 sales or units per month, which basically means listings can't keep up with sales, or sales are outpacing listings. People are asking for single-family homes. We're taking them to single-family homes. They're buying single-family homes. Who's buying? Millennials who were confirmed renters 2 or 3 years ago are now taking advantage of these very, very low mortgage rates. Northeasterners who were coming here anyway because of Tax Reform 17, the coronavirus has acted as an accelerator. You probably heard me say that before. I'm not the only one saying it, but in fact, it's happened. They're convinced that come flu season in a few months, they may get another wave of this, and they're not going to be quarantined in cold weather again. So they came down here, particularly during Q3, and they bought a lot of houses along with the millennials. And that's been the result of it. Let's go to the next slide. This is where Oppenheimer shines. Andres Oppenheimer said 6 months, starting April 1, which was the beginning of Q2. So that's April, May, June, July, August, September. There's your 6 months. There's your V. This line here is the difference between 19 and 20. So you can see here in Q1, we sold more houses in Q1 of 20 than we did in 2019. Remembering 2019 was a good year. Oh boy, Q2 we got clobbered. We were in quarantine. We were in shutdown. The news about the coronavirus all over the world was indeed devastating, and people weren't looking for houses so much. You had a hard time getting people to come and look, and some of you didn't even want to show houses. Understandable. But in Q3, what a remarkable comeback. There were more sales in August and September this year, this month and last month, in Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County than the previous year by a factor of 4%. Yes, you outsold 2019, remembering that 2019 was a really good year. This is where we got clobbered. But still, it was houses that made Andres Oppenheimer in this presentation spot on. Also says something about South Florida. Don't ever second guess the popularity of South Florida, because it seems like whenever there's an issue in the world, people want to come to South Florida. Let's go to the next slide, because now I want to talk about condos. Next slide, please. But I have to talk about condos in the context of houses. Look at Q1. You see this 50-50 relationship? Normally, every 2 sales that are made, one is a house, one is a condo. This is normal. And that's what we saw in Q1 of this year. Look what happened in Q2. This is definitely not normal. 85% of all transactions were houses. This is about 2 words: social distancing. Those 2 words are going to be a part of our vocabulary for a little bit longer, because here you get to decide who comes in and out of your house. It's easy to manage social distancing. The perception of condos, not so much during Q2, and the numbers say so. Not my opinion. These are the results of actual closings. But look what happened in Q3. The dance between houses and condos is starting to normalize. Normal. Definitely not normal. Trying to normalize. Now you're at 35% of all transactions this quarter were condos. And why? Because I think condos are safer to go into now. People are aware that we're wearing masks. There's hand sanitizers everywhere. So condos are no longer considered unsafe. It shows in the numbers. Let's go to the next slide. This is just the same theme of houses, but I want you to see what's happening overall with inventory with condos for sale. A year and a half ago, there were 28,000 plus in Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach County. You see the downward progression. A year ago, 26,000. January of this year, 25. Now you're down to 24. It definitely slowed down this year. But let's go to the next slide, because I want you to see that the pattern with houses is starting to now show up with condos. In the last few months, we've seen the average amount of listings of 2,700 per month, but sales are outpacing new listings by about 65. It's actually been much stronger during August and September, but we've annualized it. And this is the result of 9 months of 2020. So yes, we're watching sales with condos now supersede our ability to list. When I show you in a little bit what's in the condo pipeline by developers, you can absolutely conclude that that number is going to rise. Let's go to the next slide. Once again, the Oppenheimer V. In Q1 of this year, we did 3% more sales with condos, Tri-County, than we did in 2019. This is where we got slaughtered. In Q2, almost 50% less than what we did in 2019. We were quarantined, we were home, nobody wanted to go into buildings, condo associations weren't letting a lot of you even into the buildings. What a mess. But look what's happened in Q3. We've climbed out nicely. I've seen these numbers overall from July, August, and September, and I can promise you that if this trend just holds, this is absolutely in positive territory in October. And who knows what it'll look like by November and December. But once again, that's a V. Once again, Oppenheimer nailed it. This is a 6-month recovery for residential real estate in South Florida. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the summation of all of this. And this one I think you'll really find interesting. We looked at the total number of residential transactions in January of 19 through September of 19. There were 62,800. This year we've written 54,000, which is 86% of that number. And if I asked any of you this morning before this presentation what you thought that number would be, I'll bet you most of you would never have guessed more than 70%. Frankly, I don't think I would have either until I saw the numbers. And I'm asking you to trust me on this. I'm watching these numbers with our research division, and I'm telling you that number is going to be north of 90, probably significantly north of 90 by the end of Q4 of this year. It's your guess as to what it's going to be, mine as well. I don't think it's going to quite match everything from 19, but let's face it, this has been an extraordinary year because of the coronavirus. And for us to recover as much as we did, yes, low interest rates helped, but I think once again it goes to the popularity of South Florida. Last 2 months snapshot. 2019 sales, 7189. In 2020, 7366 plus 177. In September, plus 224. This trend continues. That's north of 90. Let's go to the next slide. New construction. This one is pretty easy. We've covered this many, many times. I'm just going to give you a quick update. 19,400 condos got developed in 2012 through the present, from Coconut Grove to the south, Fort Lauderdale to the north. All of this is east of 95. Today, there's 1,590 units remaining for sale. One of the more popular, let's go to the next one. One of the more popular neighborhoods in South Florida is Brickell for condos. It is by far the most popular neighborhood for condos. In 2012, 5,400 units since 2012 were developed. That's what's remaining to be sold. When you look at what's remaining to be sold, we broke it out for you very easily. There's 125 units left at Brickell City Center, 29 at Flatiron, 45 at Una. Under construction, will be delivered around 2023. Standing inventory. But look at the constant progression down of unsold inventory. A year and a half ago, close to 500 unsold developer units. Today, 199. This has been a slow year for reasons we've just discussed, and still inventory is down. Rule of thumb, if you have 10% or more of a given building that's in MLS, you've got a buyer's market. 10% or less, you've got a seller's market. Brickell Avenue, 90% of all the sales for the last 3 years are all the condos that were built since 2012 in the new cycle. It makes sense. The ceilings are higher, the kitchens and baths are nice, the amenities are spectacular, and there have been some great buys there because there have been some Latin families, frankly, particularly from Venezuela, that needed to sell, that wanted to sell, and sold at some really great bargain prices. And look how it showed up. North of 10%, we had 16.35% of all of the new units built in Brickell on the market a year and a half ago. This past January, 14%. And now it's down to 12. I've been watching this. And I'm telling you, by the end of December, that number is going to be getting very close to 10. When you're south of 10, just below 10, you've moved from a buyer's market to a seller's market. Condos, Brickell, great buying opportunities right now. Condos in Brickell, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, the buying opportunities are over. Now is the time, because if this trend continues, once you fall below 10, you know the rest of the story. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the proof in the pudding. This is 2020, albeit a slow condo sales year, I understand. But look how it breaks out. 36% of all condo sales happened in Brickell. 18% in Edgewater, 6% downtown, 17% the beaches, which we call South Beach, all the way up to Sunny Isles. Strike that, all the way up really to Hollywood Beach. 12% Aventura, and this is Coconut Grove, Key Biscayne combined, and that is Fort Lauderdale. That is the king of condos. Brickell, I tell you all the time, if you have a client that wants to buy a condo, whether they're coming from Colombia, Mexico, the Northeast, show them Brickell, because 1 out of 3 of them are going to buy something in Brickell. The numbers say so. It's not my opinion. I'm just trying to maximize your opportunity for selling something, because this is where they want to live. Let's go to the next slide. This shows what's coming in the form of new supply. This year, there was a groundbreaking earlier this year for Una Residences. It's a 135-unit, spectacular building on the bay in Brickell. But there's nothing planned for 2021, nothing for 2022. These numbers will probably change in 23 and 24, but there's zero new supply in the pipeline right now. So those units I just showed you in MLS, plus the 199 standing inventory in Brickell, that's all that Brickell has right now. And that's all that Brickell will have for a while. Let's go to the next slide, because I want to show you what macroly looks like. That was just Brickell. This is Coconut Grove all the way up to Fort Lauderdale. In 2018, you had 4 groundbreakings: Aston Martin, Missoni Bahia, 4 Seasons in Fort Lauderdale, and 2000 Ocean in Hallandale. Last year, 57 Ocean broke ground. Earlier this year, Una broke ground, and Mr. C Residences in Coconut Grove. Look what is in the pipeline for new groundbreakings in the rest of what is really the condo-rich environment, which is Coconut Grove to the south and Fort Lauderdale to the north. By 2023, this will change, but right now there's nothing in the pipeline. So yes, it's a buyer's market, but I'm telling you, it's a 3 to 6 month buyer's market, because then you're going to fall under 10%, and that's when the sellers have the advantage. Let's go to the next slide. Demand, next slide, please. We talk about the migration from the Northeast to South Florida. In 2019, all of these little red states, they're red not for political reasons, they're red because they had negative population net numbers. All of these states, led by the state of New York. New York last year lost 230 people every day. I don't know what the 2020 numbers are going to look like. What I do know is that all of these states that were seriously impacted by the 2017 Tax Reform Act made it very expensive for people to live here. And they're moving. And their number 1 state of choice is Florida. That happened since 2012. It's been accelerated in 2020 because of the coronavirus. But nevertheless, we're the recipients of it. Who knows what it's going to look like for Q4 and for that matter, early 2021. It's one of our last slides. Just to give you perspective. 10 years ago, 50% of all of our sales came from Latin America. 21% of our sales were domestic US. And look what has happened in 10 years. Here we are in 2020, it's reversed. 50% of your sales are domestic US, 23% are Latin America. It's not because Latin Americans don't love South Florida. It's because the dollar is still trading very high. It makes real estate expensive. They've also been suffering with a lot of quarantine. Colombia was closed for 6 months. They just opened up like last week. But a lot of you realtors are expecting Colombians to show up in some substantial numbers, and you should, because they are. Mexico reopened in early July, and they are coming. Argentina will reopen like right now, so I think we can expect some of them in Q1 as well. Nevertheless, I think this ratio will hold steady through Q4 and probably most of 2021. This ratio. The only thing that's going to change here, in my opinion, is more demand from Latin America. Takeaways. Once again, declining developer and MLS inventory. We're not making any more inventory at the moment. And what you have is all you're going to have, and that's why it's declining. The projected V-shaped recovery from Oppenheimer, he nailed it. I'm not exactly sure how he knew, but he knew. The continued population growth in South Florida remains, and the lack of developer supply in the future is indeed unprecedented. I've been living here for 30 years, and I've never seen the pipeline of new construction so small as it is now. It basically means that those moving to South Florida in 2021 looking for shelter are primarily going to be relying on all of you through the MLS, because that's the only supply that we're going to have for people to move into for not just 2021, but more than likely 2022 and beyond. That's the Q3 update from RelatedISG and ISG. Wish you a lot of luck in Q4. Get your rest. You're going to need your energy because you're all going to be very busy. Bye-bye now.